Good afternoon, class. Today we're going to work on standard form equations and slope-intercept form equations. But before we do, I just want to let you know that I am home today with a sick 6-year-old. Kellen came to me in the middle of the night crying because he had puked for the first time ever. And so I get to stay home with him and help him feel better. All of you that were going to come in today to work on retakes, I apologize for not being available today, but I promise I will make sure that I make time for you next week on Tuesday or Wednesday. So just get a stamp for Tuesday or Wednesday and we can work through that then. All right, so the first thing I want to look at is standard form. Standard form equations are where you have both variables x and y on one side of the equation, and then you have the number that does not have any attachment to a variable completely by itself. So the standard form is ax plus by equals c, and one example of that would be 2x plus 5y and then equals 30. So you can see that 30 does not have a variable attached to it. 30 is completely by itself. So slope-intercept form, though, is y equals mx plus b. This is probably the form that you're more comfortable with, more used to, and this is where y is completely by itself. You have the x variable listed first, and then the number that stands completely by itself at the end. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to look at how do we change this standard form equation into slope-intercept form. We just want to rearrange the equation. We're not changing it, we're just rearranging it so that y is completely by itself. So the first thing we want to do here is subtract 2x, subtract 2x. Now we know that 2x cannot be subtracted from 16 because they are not like in terms. So we now have negative 2x, that 16 was positive, so I'm putting plus 16. Now some of you may say, okay, well that's really the same thing as 16 minus 2x. You're exactly right, that is the same thing. However, slope-intercept form tells us that we want to have y equals mx plus b, so I want to have whatever is attached to the x listed first in the equation. Now we still have this 4y. I want y completely by itself, so I need to divide both sides by 4. We know that cancels and we're left with y equals 2 divided by 4 is 1/2. That was negative, so make sure you have negative 1/2 x, and then 16 divided by 4 is positive 4. So I've now rearranged that equation into slope-intercept form. Y equals negative 1/2 x plus 4. Go ahead and pause and try this one on your own, and then as soon as you're finished, hit play again so you can check your work. So the first thing that we're going to do in this problem is add 3x to both sides. When we add 3x, that cancels. We're left with 9y equals 3x plus 27. From here, we want to divide everything by 9, which cancels, gives us y equals 3 divided by 9 is 1/3. So we have 1/3 x, and then 27 divided by 9 is 3. So our answer is y equals 1/3 x plus 3. Now, if you're using a calculator to do 3 divided by 9, that's fine, but I would strongly suggest that you leave this in the form of a fraction. And the reason for that is that it's going to help us tremendously when we go to graphing. So don't change that to a decimal, leave it as a fraction. Now the next thing I want to look at is how do we take a slope-intercept form equation and change it to standard form. We want both x and y on the same side, so we're going to subtract 4x on both sides. This cancels here. We're left with 5 by itself, and then we have negative 4x plus y. That y was positive. Now, when you write your standard form equation, we want the x variable and coefficient listed first, and then y second, because standard form tells us ax plus by equals c. A, b, and c are going to be represented with numbers. Now notice here in this one, we didn't have a number in front of y, which is assumed that if we did, that number would be 1, but that's not necessary to show. All right, one more example. Go ahead and try this one on your own. Put this into standard form where X and Y are on the same side. As soon as you're finished, go ahead and start the video back up and make sure you did it correctly. So we're going to go ahead and add 2/3 X to both sides. This cancels, and we're left with -4. So we have 2/3 X plus Y, and that's our standard form equation. So really today I want to focus on just converting equations from standard form to slope-intercept form and from slope-intercept form to standard form. Just to give you a heads up, I had already planned to be gone on Monday because my boys have doctor's appointments, so I will not be here on Monday. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to email me or plan to come in for Flex on Tuesday or Wednesday, and I will help you then. Again, I apologize for not being here today. I was super excited after last night meeting with all of your parents, had some really great conversations, and you all have some wonderful families to go home to at night. So thank you again, and we will see you on Tuesday.